everybody. Welcome to Designhounds Talks, our monthly Designhounds exclusive presentations, talking to industry experts about anything and everything related to design, the business of design, creative inspiration, and your own personal wellness and financial wellness, and all those great juicy topics. So that's our commitment to the Designhounds community, to help you guys build your businesses, grow, feel good about getting up in the morning and all that. I know that's important for me. So that's why we've decided to do that. And again, this is an exclusive in our private Designhounds group. So people that are not members of the Designhounds community really can't be part of this, because we take care of our people. You got to join us. You know, hey, if you guys want to invite more people to join Designhounds, feel free to do that anytime. Shameless plug. But most of you guys know me. I'm Veronica Miller, the founder of Designhounds, and I'm here today with the one and only Susan Brinson of House of Brinson. And if you guys were just listening in, we're chatting a little bit when we met, and it can be 15. It couldn't be 15 years ago. I'm not old enough, but I think probably 14, something like that. Yeah, the early Twitter days, right? And you said something interesting, predating Instagram.
Right. I remember in New York City, there was, before Instagram really existed or had taken off, there was a great Twitter community for the design community, and everyone would use hashtags and have these little chats online. I've always worked in the visual arts, so I was more of a listener than a chatter. But when Instagram came along and I could take my visual expression and put that somewhere, that's the thing that I really connected with.
That's the thing. And you know, it's so funny. I'll tell you that in a minute. And I know you're now sitting in your spectacular country house called Stonyford, and you'll tell us about that in a minute too. You know that when Instagram started, I kind of read the rules, and to me it was for artists and for especially for photographers, which of course your husband Will is a fantastic photographer. I'm not. So I didn't get on it. I just thought, no. I can't use this. I get like that. And I can't use this because I'm not a photographer. This is for that community. And I can't go around taking pictures at trade shows and post those there. So I actually went on Instagram really late, and terribly, I might add. Lots of filters. I don't know why I was so into sepia at the time.
Everyone had their sepia era. I had it. Everyone had
it. It was so funny because you sometimes just, you're like, I don't know what to do. Can I do this? Am I, you know, and some people just barged ahead and did whatever they need to do. And I hope we can talk about that a little bit today. But before we do that, give us a little bit of your backstory.
Sure. So I've always been a creative person since I was a little kid, and I went to SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, with a focus in design. And when I graduated, I moved to New York City and immediately started working in the advertising industry. I've done work from luxury resorts to very large Fortune 100 brands, where I focus primarily on managing a team of designers and account managers. And I focused on not only the design, but also the strategy behind it. And during that time, I was wildly unhappy with that job because I wasn't making anything. I'm a maker, like I like to create things. So I started a blog, and I got on Instagram and I started meeting people in the interior design community. My loft that I lived in Manhattan was published. I started to work with my husband, Will, a lot more on the visual assets, the images that were on our blog. And then I left the advertising industry to work with Will, and we worked as a photography duo. We both shot. I probably did like more lifestyle stuff, whereas like Will is really good at like doing like interiors and architecture, tabletop. Alcohol is really hard to shoot, and he's really good at it. So we collaborated, and it was really great. But during the pandemic, because we were traveling so much for work, we were without jobs. And it happened overnight with a lot of people. The pandemic brought a lot of change. And I had an old client from the advertising industry reach out to me and say, hey, I've got this job. It is interior design, styling, some photography, and history. Would you like to work on it? And so I have been not only with that job, but with other jobs, working as an interior designer for going on about 2.5 years now. And I've made a complete transition to doing that full time, kind of taking it from just working on my own house and my own projects to a full-time career.
Inc- You know, I mean, I followed you for so long, and I remember at one point we were talking just about your advertising career, and of course we had you. I drag you guys to anything that involves photography and styling because such a thing I struggle with so much, and it just travels so well when you do that really well, and when you know the you know the tricks of the trade, both on the photography side and on the styling side. It just makes such a difference as designers, as any creative tries to sell themselves. You know, having the right visual to support that is of course key. And then and then as you said, and I didn't even know that you guys struggled so much through the pandemic. Should have thought,
Oh
but
yeah.
didn't occur to me. I always look at you guys, you're like over there, you know, we've moved out of New York. Now we've got Stonyford. Now we're doing all this stuff. And never even occurred to me that the Brinsons would ever kind of face like a wall
Yeah.
at all. You know,
The
you never know
year
what's happening with people.
the year before the pandemic, I think that we had traveled to Colorado to shoot for Target. We were in Milan shooting for Martini and Rossi. We were traveling like all the time. So without access to that, we ended up starting an online shop as well, which was amazing because of our Instagram following. We replaced our photography salaries completely in 5 months.
Seriously.
It was a complete
Whoa.
replacement. It was amazing. It was just like I could not. Well, first off, our followers and our community on Instagram had our back. Like
Yeah.
that was one of the most amazing moments where like you kind of have like all these thousands of people watching you every day and you don't know who everyone is. And then all of a sudden they just show up. They're like, no, I'm getting all of my holiday gifting from you. And you're like, wow, that's amazing.
So let me back into this. First of all, give me a little bit of a timeline in terms of your growth. It's 120,000 followers
Sure.
that we're talking about. When did that happen, and what was your original goal for Instagram? Was it to promote the photography side of your world? Was it to do brand collaborations? Was it concurrent with Stonyford? Were you trying to structure that, or or was it just organic? Hey, we just do great stuff and we want to put it out there. What was the motive? What was your why? And then what was the spike in terms of growth, and how has that behaved over the last number of years?
Sure. So I think I really got on Instagram whenever we moved into our current house, Stonyford, 10 years ago. We made a major change moving from this loft that we had in Manhattan, which was like right next to the Empire State Building, to this very dilapidated mansion that we bought that is right next to a horse farm. And like it's kind of I'd say it's in the middle of nowhere. Like we have some shopping around us, and we're an hour and a half from Manhattan, but for me, it felt like the middle of nowhere
Yeah.
because there's no
As a New
bodega.
Yorker, everything is the
There's
middle
no
of nowhere.
bodegas here. There's nothing. Um, so we made this major change just because we were really just felt really called to do it, that we were ready for something different. And at that point, I think I had 1,200 followers on Instagram. I didn't take it really seriously. It was like me going out to parties, like dancing with friends. I don't know, something stupid. They're still up there. You guys can go look at them. Totally stupid stuff. And I started Instagram the house, and it was pretty dilapidated. It was very romantic. There was something really intriguing about the story of the house, how it ended up this way, because it was so big and like such a project. I think that it was a natural draw to people. And then I started to take it a little bit more seriously and like really use the skills that I had earned as a photographer and in advertising to create that story. So for me, it's like one 10-year story that every year, like, or every milestone, like new chapters develop, and you have to figure out how to tell that story. And if you think about Instagram that way, it makes it a lot easier, doesn't it? It just
Mhm.
seems a bit more approachable that you're going to have this big, massive story and you're going to tell it over time. And you don't know what the ending is. There's no ending.
It's a book
So
with chapters, right?
yeah, it's like if you think about each year as a chapter, well, what did I do?
Yeah.
So we started off with about maybe like 1,500, 1,200, 2,000 followers, not much. And it just started to grow. We were featured in a lot of different digital media publications. at the time that whenever they did feature someone, you were picking up, say, 2,000 followers, 5,000 followers. You would be picking up chunks here and there whenever you were featured. So that kind of compounded, and then all of a sudden we had 30,000 followers. And I just kept doing the same thing. And at this point, Instagram was just pictures. There was no stories. There was no video component to it yet, just pictures. When things really started to take off, two things happened. Instagram stories came about, which for me, I knew how to do that. Like, that's how my mind works. Like, I come from the world of branding and storytelling. So doing Instagram stories was like, well, this is awesome. I have this new tool in my toolkit that I can like do things with. And I also started to focus on doing more project-focused work, meaning that I was going to renovate and design the living room. I was going to renovate and design a guest room. And it was really, really focused on those things because, like a good story, there was a beginning and an end to that. You got to see the reveal, and it was really exciting. We did a project called the One Room Challenge twice, and the collective effort from that, I would see growth by maybe 10,000 followers, 20,000 at some points. Like, you know, it just kind of kept compounding, and people were super addicted to it. Like, I had people telling me that for the reveal of some of those two projects that I did, they'd stay up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning waiting for us to post the after blog post.
I was one of them. Totally.
Okay.
Total junkie.
I'm like, I'm asleep, just go to bed. I'll publish it at this time. Like, don't worry about it. And I think that those were really like taxing on our bodies, our spirits. Like, that's all that we did for 6 weeks. Our pocketbook, it was difficult for, because they weren't sponsored in the sense that I was getting paid from a brand to do those. It was just for my own personal growth.
Yeah.
So those personal projects, if you have a personal project that you can do, I'd say focus on it. And even in this world where now I'm doing interior design, I'm kind of in a bit of a pinch because I have like a few really big projects and I have NDAs on all of them. So I can't share them at all. Yeah, I can't share them at all, which is really challenging because I can't get more work from that work. So I think that like sharing my own personal home allows me to tell the story I want to, how I want to tell it. And it also, I should be showcasing my best work. It's my own work, you know, my own house. So it should be.
And it's truly about self. It is,
Yeah.
and it plays into originality and, you know, a lot of those topics. And, you know, I mean, not everybody is married to a photographer, not that you yourself aren't
So
also a great photographer. I was just going to say that. I was just going to before I put my foot in my mouth.
Yeah, I do. Like, I did a little video the other day. If you look at my feed, I did like this, it was foggy out. And I was up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I just like went out.
Do you take it on the phone?
What's that?
Do you take, is your photography on phone or
just on my iPhone? Yeah, just on my iPhone. And I grabbed my phone, I walked outside for like maybe 15 minutes, grabbed some footage, came in and edited it and put it up. It was really
came in and what do you use to edit?
I use CapCut. So, but that one I think I did an Instagram because I was doing a bit of a test to see if it would bump it more, and it did not.
Did not help if you use a native.
But I like editing in CapCut.
That's a big conversation. Before I go into a little bit more of, you know what, no, actually, let's do that right now. What do you think are sort of, even today, some of those really important facts and features to consider around Instagram? Obviously, it's still an important tool. There's an argument to be made. Should people be paying to get presented to their audiences or not? But also, what's the organic growth? What works best in terms? Is there timing to think about? Is it all about just the quality? Is there a critical mass in followers? Where would you go like today?
Sure. I think you have to, if someone's looking to grow, I'd say consider your personality. I have friends who are amazing at hacking the algorithm and the growth strategies and being really technical about it. Like, if you post in this 15-minute window, you're going to get yada, yada. I don't really have time for that. So I post when I can post. Some people do really well with schedulers because it makes sure that they hit targets. They're posting a certain amount of content. I just think that number one, post, like just get something out there, whether it's a still image, stories, reels, just try to get something up there. I think that stories are probably the easiest.
How often, I know, I mean, some of your stories, when I go into Brinson mode and I see you guys pop up at the top and I'm like, I gotta see what they're doing. There are teeny tiny dots are your stories. I might
Yeah.
post one. What is there a thing for you? Do you find people stick with if you post like a lot of stories continuously? Do they
If it's
stick with
really
it?
intriguing, yes. So there's in my mind, I think a story has a beginning and an end. And so for me, like the least interesting stories are like just when like someone has like one slide and then moves to the next one. Like I want something I can kind of like dive into, right? Like I mean, I do it sometimes too. Like it's not saying it doesn't exist, but I will tell you that most of my story feed is
Yeah,
that content, that one slide, and then it flips to the next one. So like you can't really get into it.
got it.
Um, the reels on Instagram aren't long like they are on TikTok, so you can't get into that either.
Right.
So for me, if I'm someplace really juicy and I have an opportunity to do great storytelling, like I went to a garden tour the other day, I could have Instagram for 30 minutes. I could have made 30 minutes worth of content and people would have watched it the whole way through.
I
So,
did.
or like
Yeah,
if
I
I
was
wanted,
there. And then I
yes,
shared
like
it
if
with
I wanted to
everybody
do
I
the
know
house
that loves
tour.
gardens. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and
So
so when you do those the stories within each visual, do you prefer to make those little video clips? Do you mix it up? Are
I
they
mix
all
it.
video? Are they all still? Where's the sweet spot
I
there?
just try to mix it. I just try to do like self-pacing in my mind. Like I don't want to do three really long videos. I want to do like a long one, a short one, a still. Like I want to mix it up because just like a movie, if you're watching a movie, like not every scene is some long, drawn out dialogue. You want to
Sure.
have a movie where it's like like bouncing around a bit and you still get those moments,
Yeah.
but it's well paced.
Yeah. What about like overlays? Do you like text overlays explaining what we're looking at? Do you feel like that's a need on every single story element, or do you just kind of
I'm a
let
visual
the
person, so I hope that the visuals speak for themselves. I
and then
do
you
try to
narrate
do
a lot, right? When you're on video, you usually speak.
right. I do narrate a lot. People can either watch it on mute or they can listen to the narration. If I think the narration is really key, I do try to put captions on as much as I possibly can. I have a big technical problem with it though. Like if I'm somewhere without like great Wi-Fi
Yeah.
or great internet, like it just doesn't work. So if it doesn't work, it's fine. I just move on and try to do the best that I can.
Okay. That makes complete sense. See, and I'm forever torn between I hate doing reels. I have stories to tell. I'm always traveling, but then I think I'm overdoing it because especially with stories, do you oftentimes just sit down in one cluster and just upload a bunch of stories back
Oh,
to
I do
back?
it in real
What's your
time.
okay?
I do it
Are
like
you
that
just
garden tour. Like when I posted the picture in the middle of I was standing in the middle of the garden.
okay?
Like
So
I
you're
do
you're not
it.
even going through just videoing the thing and then uploading it later. You're just
No,
telling.
I like look around and I'm like, wow, that's a great sight line. That's a cool garden. Like let's Instagram that really quick.
Did you ever have to get over like a threshold before you were kind of feeling awkward about speaking to an inanimate object, i.e. yourself and your phone, and kind of just starting to talk? Or is it in
Um,
your head always, hey, I know my audience is out there somewhere?
I just think of my audience like my besties. Like if we were gonna sit here and have a conversation, I would speak the exact same way.
Yeah,
Like, hey, this is what I think is interesting. I do try to stay on topic to design lifestyle stuff. I don't go far off that topic from time, 99% of the time. If I did, it would be very unusual. So I just try to stay on that topic. That's why people follow me. And and that's it. Like we did a great cocktail hour with my husband Will during the pandemic. People were really like into that. And I'd get messages saying, like, even to this day, people will send me a note saying, like, that got me through the pandemic and I don't even drink.
you know what, one of our most, and again, I am not an Instagram expert. Florence and Sarah have taken the weapons away from me a long time ago. They give me my own little personal account and I get to screw around over there, but they're like, please go away. Do not touch this. And But one of our most successful events, if not the most successful event, was our virtual happy hour during the pandemic, where we were making sous vide limoncello. I don't know if you guys
Oh,
were part
wow.
of that or not, but millions of impressions, and everybody was just kicking around,
Yeah.
using a sous vide stick to make their own limoncello, and we were all having cocktails together for 2 hours. And sometimes I miss that. The introvert in me misses some of that. I know we all got
Yeah.
burned out on Zoom, but I think now it's kind of having a sort of a little bit of a rebirth, and that's exciting. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the shop. I know you started mentioning that earlier and how that has worked out really well for you. Tell us how to set that up and what the secret sauce was in terms of product mix, product sizes, how you work, also how you work with designers. Feel free to promote yourself and
Yeah. So
just tell
for
us a
the
little about
shop,
it. Mhm.
on Instagram, whenever I would do a design project, everyone was always like, "Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that?" I'm like, "Well, I got it from some small, obscure maker who's not even on the online selling." And I would always like have some weird backstory about where I got it, or it was an antique that I could not possibly find a second one of.
Right.
So we started to think about what kind of items we'd put in the shop. It's a mix of antique and a mix of new. Obviously, the cocktail stuff for Will was really critical because he was having a moment with that, and the cocktail things are still some of our best sellers.
Really.
Um, so we just put what we loved. I was always finding like design, like beautiful little accessories, in me as like a stylist who I think that to make a great picture, like you have to have good accessories and good styling and
Yeah.
like these little like micro moments. So I was pulling a lot of stuff that I wanted for my own house, like great marble accessories, really pretty stationery to put into a desk to style it, all these little things I was pulling together. So we just did it based on instinct. What I found is you have to watch your consumers and see what they want to buy. You have to watch their price points and see what they want. Like something that I'm really deep diving into is beautiful textiles. I'm buying textiles from South Africa because I don't really see that kind of textile sold in America a lot. So like I'm learning what people want to see, what I'm also interested in, and then really deep diving on that topic and pulling it into the shop. We do work with designers. It's you just have to email us and we'll create a custom code for you. And yeah, or if people want stuff ordered, we also do like bulk ordering. Like I collaborate with a few designers where I select fragrances for their clients' houses. And like one client has like a city house and a country house that they summer in. And I'll go through and I'll do all their hand soaps, candles. And if they need like a refresh on their tea towels, I'll do that for them. And just send one box to each location and it's done.
I need that. I really do. I am the least decorative person you will ever meet. I like good art and I like good antiques, but I'm like, somebody just please do this.
It's the experience though in a home, like whenever you go to a party or you're having people over, like what are they washing their hands with? What's the towel like? Are there flowers in a pretty little vase on the sink
It's true.
countertop?
It
All
is
these
true.
little things.
Yeah,
Um,
I think there's maybe a concierge designer model that could update that, not just at Christmas and for like someone's wedding, but year round. I wonder if that's an opportunity, or if people even in the audience are talking about doing stuff like that, where they
yeah,
come in and refresh accessories and, revive the place. So, because I think if you're really busy at work, I know I don't, and I love to entertain, and then the house is always clean, but then I'm going, oh crap, gotta go get flowers, gotta go do this.
yeah.
But it's not really thought out
Mhm.
because if you don't have the time. So do you guys sell design service ideas too? Do you guys bundle up stuff like that? That's just a kind of ad
Well, I
hoc
do it
question.
as part of just a design service for specific clients. So,
Okay.
for instance, I have a corporate client that has very like luxury clientele. So they don't want to use a big brand of soap in their restrooms. They want to use a small brand. So I did a whole like sourcing for them. I put 3 or 4 different brands in front of them and said, well, which one do you like? And and then they ended up picking a very small woman made company in America for their corporate offices and stuff like that. Like I feel good because that means that I can give that business to a company where it's really going to make a difference. So I think that if people are looking for really good sourcing, that's something that we can do through our shop.
Yeah. I want to harp on the House of Brinson look a little bit on Instagram. Obviously, you guys are the OG. I think you were there before many other high contrast, moody interiors, that whole look. I feel like I give you guys a lot of credit for sort of taking that to the next level, if not even kicking it into
What do people
life.
call it now? They call it like color drenching or something like that.
Yeah.
I heard it the other day,
Yeah.
and I'm like, actually, they've been doing that since like the 1840s in England. So it's not a new idea.
It's not a new idea, but you guys, it's one of those things, right? We've created this hashtag Dare to Design back in January this year, because it just, I'm so worried about design in general becoming a little bit templated and becoming kind of leaning into what others are doing rather than really just staying your course and saying, not every client's my client, and this is where we're going. And I know, because that's why I wanted to kind of hear your backstory a little bit, because coming from the branding side, what you're creating when you create an interior space, you're creating a brand for that family, for the people that live there.
Yeah, it's a lot of storytelling.
I think the exercise is the same, almost to a point where you might want to say, as a designer, maybe you should have some consulting time with a branding agency to help define your own style, but maybe also that of your clients. Now, you guys have such a strong identity with Stonyford and the visuals that you're putting out there. Is that the line you drive with all of your clients? Do you move away from that? Would you do something like super edgy and modern? Where do you draw the line?
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I would love it. Yeah, I mean, I'm work off of briefs. I think that if you can sit with a client and you can write a really strong brief, really strong, like what are the inspirations? What does it feel like? What is the story when you walk into this space, and like you've definitely been there, like you've seen the house tours and people take someone around the room and they're like, oh, I bought this marble sculpture during my travels one summer in Italy, and I bought this modernist lamp over here at a great antique store and it was made in the 80s. Or like there's some story behind every single object. Like I like spaces like that. And if you have that big picture concept where you're really honing in and staying in on that concept, the story kind of comes together. And to me, our personal style is our personal style, but I just consulted on a space that was had a lot of pink. I would characterize it as being very feminine, very distinctively feminine, and that's something that was part of the brief. So I think that for me, it's not something that I would personally have in my own house, but I did love every single second of it. And it was a really strong design. And that means that it had great color. The scale was perfect. There was definitely some improvements made on some of the items in the room from a design perspective that were initially missed. So, whenever I think about design, it's like, are we hitting all those marks of like what really defines great design by concept, rather than just like saying, oh, that's my style.
Yes. And having a background story, I feel like, leaning into the homeowner's story, the business owner's story, the home story, the town story. I always feel like, one of my biggest beefs in the design industry is that it's not about shopping and it's not about executing on pictures that the client gives you.
Right.
So, but creating first. And I think to create, again, you're telling the story and you're helping that client do the things that they cannot do. They can shop themselves if they wanted to go online and do that.
They could,
But,
yeah, absolutely.
So what is the value? And I think the value has to come from really interpreting that story and telling it in a way that looks fantastic, but that also is meaningful and thoughtful.
And also one of the things that I ask clients is, where does this person that lives in this room, what are they like in 5 years? Right? And I always tell a story about when Will and I were very young. We were living in New York City, got married 3 years after college with now an enormously expensive wedding, now that I think about it. And I'm driving to LaGuardia to pick up my aunt from Wisconsin, and my Toyota Tercel that I've had since high school seizes up, the engine seizes up at LaGuardia. And it was like, I mean, we needed a car. Like we were getting married, like, you know, what a wedding is like you're running around. We were also getting married upstate. So like we weren't getting married where there was public transportation. So we rent a car, and then after our wedding, we go to buy a new car. And whenever we were looking around, we ended up getting, to us, what seemed a luxury car, right? And it had leather seats.
Yep.
It had a 6-cylinder engine, which was had like a lot of pickup, and it was still like a sedan. And to us, it felt very fancy because we were really upgrading. And Will's like, I just don't know if this feels like who we are. I'm like, yeah, but is it the person that you want to be? And
Oh, I got goosebumps.
and after he drove the car for 6 months, he was like, no, I'm glad that we got this. This is really nice. It's like a real luxury. It wasn't that much more expensive. And it kind of helped to transform him. Like we were young. I don't want to say we were kids, but we were young.
Yeah.
And this car seemed very sophisticated to us.
Yeah.
So I always ask that in relationship to clients in interior design. I'm like, you see yourself as this one person, but how could this room be for your future self? Like, what does your future self want to feel like and be like? Do you want to be a more sophisticated person? Do you want to be more comfortable? Do you want to be surrounded by art and objects that intrigue you and have deep meaning? All of these things kind of play into that storytelling, and I think create really personal spaces for people.
Oh man, you're gonna get so many quotes coming out of this thing, sister. I'm telling you right now. That is that I'm like completely looking around, going like, okay. I'm quite satisfied with where I'm at, kind of now that I
Well,
think about
and
it.
there's
But
something
there
in
isn't
that. There's something in that
it's
satisfaction too.
and it should be aspirational, right? And you should be able to dream big and reach a little bit. So to me, again, all falls under this idea of dare to design and kind of, stop it with the copying. And that brings me kind of to a question I have is, the future of Instagram, and also where are the pitfalls as we see design professionals using Instagram right now? What do you see people doing wrong? I won't say it, but I want to hear from you. What do you think are some of the changes that are upcoming that designers really need to know about? But also, what are you seeing right now? Where are you going? This is going to get you in trouble, or it's just not going to help you build your brand?
Well, I think that one thing that is borderline going to get people in trouble and it's not going to help them build their brand is that Instagram just came out with this rule that they're going to, I don't know if they use the word demote, but they're not going to promote aggregate content. Meaning that if you have an Instagram account called, I'm going to make this up. There's probably something really called this, but it's called like fancy interiors, right? Or whatever. And they're taking all these images from Pinterest and they're aggregating, or you have like an interior designer who's taking, say, like 90% of their feed is inspo images, right? It's not actually their work. And those images have been published a lot, right? Instagram is not going to include that information in the discovery grid. You're going to see aggregate accounts that normally get a lot of free promotion get no promotion because they are really looking for individuals who are creating original content to bring to the top. So it actually gives, if you're doing that, like you now even have more motivation to keep creating that original content. It's going to get brought to the top. You have a better chance now. So I think
Yeah.
that that's definitely something to understand and to consider.
Is Instagram going back to putting more emphasis on static images too, or is that a rumor?
I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
I think that they
video is
say
still
a lot of
king.
things. I have not seen that yet. Um, I think that until they can really get in there and fix the algorithm, we're not going to see a lot of movement. And like I think that because I know how like algorithms are written like in concept, I see a lot of flaws in the Instagram. I would love to hire me as a consultant Instagram. Like I can fix a lot of issues.
Yeah.
Especially whenever you compare it to someone like TikTok who can kind of read your mind and they know what's going on. Instagram quite isn't that good yet. So I do feel like I try to balance it between like creating reels to get new community members into what we're doing. I make sure that if I create content like that, it's really on target with our core values. Like, you don't want to go viral for something that's not part of your core values.
Yeah.
Meaning that I don't want to go viral for how to cook a perfect hamburger when I don't do a lot of food content. That's not my
Yeah.
core. So I try to do outreach content like reels in that category. Whereas in stories, I create content for the people that are already part of our community.
So that's a
And
beautiful way of dissecting that, right?
Mhm.
That I can get behind that. If somebody tells me, all right, you're gonna, once a week, twice a week, get in there, do a reel to bring in those new people and make it content that gets shared a lot. Because the reels algorithm just is different, and then entertain the people that are already there with stories. I feel like
Yeah.
that that makes sense.
One is the business mixer, which would be reels. The other
Yeah,
one is the private dinner party at your house that you're just happen to be like having a conversation amongst friends.
yeah.
And that would be what I put in stories. Like, okay, these are my friends. We're going to talk about the garden tour. Here's the pictures on my phone that I want to show them. And, and just keep it really light and fun.
Yeah, one thing that just popped into my head, and that's actually back to the shop, just to get the logistics out of the way there. When you guys ship, is it all drop shipping, or are you
Oh
guys
no,
warehousing stuff?
we ship everything. We use Shopify.
Okay.
Um, we have a small room for a warehouse. We do not have big warehouse space. I would like to increase that because I would like to carry larger antiques.
Mhm.
But it is a bit of the logistics of shipping. If you stay to small objects, soft goods like textiles, smaller objects that can go in, say, a 24 by 24 box, then the logistics aren't terrible if you want to ship it yourself. Meaning that Shopify you'll select the box size, Shopify will print the label. Every time that you upload a product into your shop, you have to weigh it and put the weight. So Shopify does all that math behind the scenes, creates a label for you, and you're good to go.
Okay.
And it's just
Okay.
having the space to actually pack a box and the materials and supplies.
Okay. To everybody listening, we will be dropping this recording into our private Facebook group, so you guys can put questions either in here right now if you like, or we'll just keep the conversation going. The content will live perpetually in the Designhounds Facebook group. So, if something pops into your mind later on, you can always reach out and just tag Susan, who happens to be in the group. Doesn't work with all of our guests, but it does certainly work here. Not that you want to spend all your life on Instagram of all places. Quick question. You mentioned TikTok a few times. How much work do you do over on TikTok?
Not much right now, but
Okay.
I'm going to try to increase it. And mainly because, my background's in strategy. So I think that I was working as an interior designer probably for about a year and a half before I officially told anyone. And it was a bit complicated because I had a photography agent and I was like involved in another side of a business that I had to make an exit from. And Will, of course, I was working with Will. So of course, then he had to like reposition himself. So it was a bit of a deal for me to make that decision. But now that that has been done, I do think that I have to position myself as an expert in interior design. There are a lot of interior designers who rely on, say, a lot of like industry accolades to do that. And because I can't publish my work, at least probably for the next 2 years, I have to rely on myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on TikTok and I'm going to get on Instagram and I'm going to try to keep it really short and sweet, 90 seconds or less, and talk about design. Instagram likes shorts, TikTok likes longer format. So I'm going to have to figure out how to slice and dice it. I have been on TikTok probably for 3 years or so, just being a really great observer, seeing what kind of content people make, what's the format, even if it's not my topic of my area of expertise. I do try to look at format and how the engagement is, like what's cool about this, why am I interested in it, and have some takeaways from that so I can form my own opinion about what would work best for me and our brand.
I love it. Beautiful. Well, we're hitting our 45-minute mark, and I don't ever like to overtalk. That, however,
Sure.
might mean that I'm going to call you again sometime in the near future, because I actually just got a private message. Maybe we can take that one. You guys can ask questions right here, guys. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
But is it okay to repeat content on Instagram to kind of bring an evergreen back up? And
Yeah.
is it okay to show work in progress versus just the finished product?
I think stories for work in progress, you have to. Like if
Okay.
you have I deal, like, again, I deal with NDAs, so like I would love to. I share my own house like crazy. People love to see the work in progress. If you can explain this is the stage that we're at and here's what's coming next, like to help people to see where you're going, I think that that only positions you as an expert. And it doesn't have to be formal. Hold the camera, talk to camera, put on captions. That's all that's to it.
That's all that's to it, so
That's
she
it.
says.
Get it
But
done.
you know, I love it. I love it because you guys have always just kind of moved to where you needed to go rather than being taken by the world. Work in progress and stories only and finished pics on the feed.
That's what I do. Yeah. And mainly because those finished pics, whatever you put on your feed, I actually put up an unfinished picture. I didn't have all the surfaces styled and it went viral. And it was a little upsetting to me.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
slightly upsetting. Not upsetting that it went viral, but if I do something that's like work in progress, I just try to be really weird and artsy about it. Kind of knowing that this is not a finished space, this is not real, it's like kind of fantastical. But yeah, I'm pretty particular about that after that incident.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Susan, thank you so much. I will see you
Absolutely.
next up at Stonyford. We've got to make that happen because I'm just dying
Yeah.
to see your house in the flesh, as it were. And so I hope we get to hang out sometime soon. And I would love to kind of call
Absolutely.
you back in here maybe later in the year when you've had a few months of building the Interior Design Authority
I
topic.
know. I'm now the resident expert for House of Rinson and interior
Oh,
design.
well, I think you kind of
Gotta
always
own
have
it.
to.
All
Thank you
right,
so much, sweetheart. This has been
thank
really
you.
cool.
I'll talk to you
Thanks.
soon.